shift your mind, the rest is gon' follow. When your heart is full, no need to borrow. Love yourself, that's where it starts. Gotta build it strong, protect your heart.
Hello and welcome to the BRIK Talks podcast. I'm your host, the BRIK Chick. Today I have Tracie Isaacs here with me. Tracie is a powerhouse in marketing, media, and event production with more than 40 years of experience shaping brands and building unforgettable campaigns. As the founder and CEO of Top Notch Strategies, she's worked with clients ranging from the Apollo Theater to the NAACP, to the NBA, the WNBA, and even the South African Consulate. She's also had a lot of experience with the Essence Festival, which we'll get into. Tracie is known for exceeding expectations, creating meaningful partnerships, and helping organizations truly connect with their audience. So please welcome Tracie to the show today.
Thank you, Bev.
Tracie, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? I know that I cannot ever probably get everything, but some highlights of your career. I know that you danced with Garth Fagan and the Bottom of the Bucket when they were originally what is the word?
Years.
Yeah, in the early years. Tell us a little bit about that and how you started with that.
Well, I would always love music and dance, and around the age of 12 and 13, I had family members who said, wow, you grasp a hold to movement really quickly, and I would teach everybody whatever the latest dances were. And I had a friend who was very close to Garth Fagan. He says, I would really like to let you see the Bottom of the Bucket. I said, well, what's that? So he took me to see a production by Garth Fagan, and I just fell in love with modern dance. It was basically everything I could do, but also Garth had a very unique way of teaching, and our teachers, they use all kind of music. So you got the pop music, you got jazz, you got salsa, even ballet. So we had a great exposure, and there was a lot of history that they taught us as well. Various dancers, where movements come from. We also were informed about movements that actually came from Africa. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot that we got exposed to.
So did you ever consider becoming a professional dancer?
Yes, I did. I really wanted to, but I was at a point also, too, where fashion was kind of tugging at me. And when Garth found out that I had a passion for fashion and was very interested in going to New York City, he said, you know what? Try both and then choose one. And when I went to New York City, I began taking classes with Alvin Ailey, but I got a job at Essence Magazine, and I kind of went the Essence Magazine route.
Of course. Yeah, I think that was a no-brainer, right? Well, yeah. I shouldn't say that, but that's quite an honor. And did you graduate from at New York Institute of Fashion?
Well, I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology.
Okay.
While there, my schedule was so busy because I was going to school at night but working at Essence during the day. I was getting more education at Essence than I was at FIT.
Okay.
But I tried to blend the two because I met a lot of people in classes. Like, there was a black buyer from Tiffany's, and I was like, wow, that was really great. And
really?
It was great to network at the campus. There were designers who came off of 7th Avenue to come and be guest speakers. So got to meet people like Norma Kamali.
Really?
It was just so great to be able to have the real industry and then to work in the industry.
Yeah, that had to be a pretty exciting time. I can only imagine. And even at the time, did you even realize the opportunity that you had?
I did. That's why when I went to New York City, it was really great to be immersed in all of that creativity and right in the heart of the garment district. I mean, I went every day walking to work and seeing designers. It might be Oscar de la Renta today, Ralph Lauren tomorrow, wow. But it made me feel like, okay, this is reality. And the closer you are to your dream, you tend to want to stay close to it because it's a reality. It just starts, coming to fruition.
Okay. And so how did you end up kind of turning that around and going into international banking?
Well, there's an interesting segue. Working on 7th Avenue, one of the companies that I worked for was doing their fall fashion show. And I wanted to ensure that our media list included people like Essence Magazine and Ebony and so forth. And I did invite Susan Taylor to one of our shows. She happened to have been out of the country at the time that we sent the invitation, but when she got back, she came straight to the showroom and she realized that she didn't get the most current invitation. But it was great meeting her and talking, and lo and behold, I got an interview. And the interview went well, and I wound up at Essence. But after Essence, I wanted to get into retail, my own line of clothing, my own jewelry. I found a little boutique. It actually was a hair salon, but it was the perfect combination because there was built-in traffic, but also I could service both men and women in that salon. So that also led me to wanting to know, how do you get more money?
That's a good question.
Yeah. So I went to work for
share.
Citibank, and the Citibank job was an opportunity because one of my clients worked for a employment firm. And she shared with me that her client was looking for just some really sharp people. He didn't want them to be accountants or cut from the financial world. He sort of wanted regular people who would grasp a hold of today's new technology with computers and teach them basic things, because it wasn't about knowing how to make money and trade and so forth. It was a matter of, he wanted dedicated people to show up every day, be responsible for their task, and learn that when you do your part, it's part of a bigger picture. And that was a great lesson. I got to travel, go to the Bahamas. Our division was called the International Banking Systems, and we created, I would call it processing systems for loans. So you could be anywhere in the world, and we would trade and make these companies, as well as individuals who were investing in the market, a lot of money.
And they were very pleased with you with that, right? Speaking of that, do you have any thoughts on crypto?
Yes. I think everybody should try to do something that can build wealth. Crypto, I know it's new and a lot of people might not think that it's real, but, we have to get out of the old mode of thinking. I mean, who would have ever thought that we would be trading something that's not a U.S. dollar base? But at the same token, you can make money all over the world, and we should be building wealth.
What do you think some of the first steps would be to take to learn about crypto? Like I've kind of gone into like on YouTube and looking at videos and kind of, you know what I mean? And I did buy some, but I'm not sure what I'm doing with it, to be honest with you.
Well, the whole game of investing is you got to be in it to win.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And you can't be in a hurry, but you have to be willing to invest and let things grow. Do the buy and hold method. Some people assume that you're going to get rich quick. It doesn't work that way. But overall, we should be investing in the stock market, S&P, anything at this point to build wealth.
Yes. And you don't have to have, some people have the idea that
And
you have to have a lot of money.
You don't have to have a lot of money, but if you do something such as sacrifice that $5 magazine or a $5 cup of coffee, and you save it up and buy some stock, whatever you have, put it in there, the sooner, the better, let it grow. And you want to be able to look back one day and say, I'm glad I didn't have that coffee.
I know. Or those $200 Jordans is what they're doing now. Like, skip a release, please. I know. So kind of back to the Essence thing, right? How did fashion and beauty shape your storytelling and like marketing when you were kind of working in the marketing?
Oh, greatly. One, because being a Black woman, I wanted to see myself, but I also wanted to talk to an audience the way someone should have talked to me. And I didn't see that growing up. So while I was at Essence, I learned how to take a topic such as how to dress cheaply, but chicly. So that was one of the columns that I used to pull together. I would look at Vogue magazine and then go and find something comparable and then talk to the audience, because they were mostly women of color, and inform them, such as how to buy something that's an investment piece. Every woman should have a good suit. Every woman should have a good black dress. Just elements that you have to decide, that it will take you into the boardrooms, or it's going to take you out to, wonderful cultural affairs. But there is a way to invest in your clothing so that you can be prepared for anything.
Yeah, that's true. I'm still learning that. I'm
Okay.
still learning that. I'll go to the store and I'll see something I like and I'll just buy it. And there's no rhyme or reason. And then it sits in my closet and I wonder like I should wear this. And so I would try to put it on with something and it just doesn't. So recently I've started, getting the pieces and getting, good jackets and
it's okay to do that. Sometimes you want to buy a piece. You don't want it to be too trendy so that next season you got to throw it away.
Yeah.
You want to buy pieces that accentuate what you have or can be a multi-use piece. Like knits are wonderful. And if it's black, it's going to work. Because if you throw it on with a color or sequins or, there's just so many things you can do with the color black. But you'll always be right if you have it.
That's true. Yeah, and there are a lot of things that you can do with it. So you have the Rochester roots.
Yes.
Yes. And what values from being from Rochester do you think carried you forward?
One, I had always heard about Frederick Douglass being a Rochesterian. And actually, when I came back to Rochester, I delved into his history even more so, because this is the foundation of where he, did a lot of his speaking and writing and was able to meet with wonderful people in history. And I just think Rochester doesn't get that credit. They do know that he was based here, but the reality is there were many people who came out of Rochester. When I learned about Cab Calloway, Austin Stewart, I even wrote an article on Austin Stewart, and someone wrote back in and said that was one of the best articles because I said no one ever told me those things.
Yeah.
So I realized that, we have a great Black history here in Rochester.
We do.
And I always refer people to come and visit and take some time, walk through Cornhill, look at the history that we have here. It's a great place to grow up.
It is. I have to say that too. When people always they termed us Rotten Chester.
No.
And I'm like, where does that come from? Come on. But yeah, I think that, and there's no other place that I've ever been. And I've traveled overseas and been to some different states, and I've traveled across the country, and I just never found a place that quite has that same like flair that Rochester has.
Every city has its own independent, flavor. But what did Frederick say? There's no soil greater.
That's really true. And Harriet Tubman.
Oh, yeah.
She has some roots here. The Underground Railroad came through here. So, yeah, there's a lot. Actually, we probably could talk about that forever, right? So building partnerships in marketing, right? So what's your secret to lasting partnerships?
Well, being authentic, having great integrity, but always trying to achieve the goal of my clients, because everyone is in business to succeed. And we have to have a partnership to succeed. There are audiences that sometimes the client is not necessarily native to, but at the same token, you want to embrace all of those consumers that can benefit from your product. So whether it's a food product, clothing, finance, you have to reach them and solidify what it is that you're trying to sell to them, but do it so that they benefit and get their goals as well.
I know. I think that sometimes when I'm speaking to people, one thing with the authenticity, sometimes I don't know if people are afraid of being authentic because they think that they're going to be judged a certain way. And so they kind of like put on this little air about themselves to impress. Do you have any advice for how to overcome that? I know you have to read the room, but if you're new, if like I'm just starting out in this the area, in this space. And so, I hope to be interviewing several people at all levels, right?
Yes.
But sometimes you have to know, and not to be fake or phony, but how to gauge.
You want to ask the question. The authenticity is asking the right question. You don't know everything right now, but you can become an expert. You can do a little background reading and follow up, but ask those pertinent questions that will get you the right answers. Such as in banking, there are many questions. Are you trying to buy a car? Is this college for your children? Or is there a big vacation? There are real questions that will help them reach those goals. Just like we're talking about saving and investing. So if you're trying to help someone achieve that dream goal, you've got to show them how you can help them get there.
And so that's it. That's it.
That's
just that simple, right? What about risk taking?
Ooh, that's a good one. Take risks, because if you don't, you'll never expand your horizons. People want to be comfortable, but sometimes you need to be uncomfortable, and then you may have a wonderful experience in that. Eat different foods, go to different countries, hang out in places that you've never been before, explore cultural environments that you may not have ever thought would be of interest to you, but you might find that there's a great interest, and you may find yourself in that. Let's say classical music. There are many African Americans that have been involved in classical music, but did you know a lot of the music that is played in your church is classical?
I didn't know that. No.
Ah, yes.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah.
What are those roots?
They come out of the African spirituals. There are many musicians. I mean, W.C. Handy wrote so many gospels that are in the hymn books.
The hymnals, yes.
If you do a little more research, you'll find that maybe you've heard of Florence B. Price. She's a woman. She's written over 300 compositions.
Really?
We even have our own African American and covering the diaspora orchestra called the Gateways Music Festival.
Wow.
Classical musicians from all over the world come to Rochester.
They do?
To perform every year. Yes.
I'm going to have to look into that. That's something that I want to do. And it's right here in Rochester.
Right here in Rochester at the Eastman Theater every year.
Yes, yes. I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of times we do limit ourselves in what we do. And I think a lot of times people don't want to do things on their own either, because you might say to a friend or a colleague, hey, I'm thinking I want to do this. I'm not interested in that, or something to that effect. And then you end up kind of like, maybe not. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good point. I never knew that.
Striking out independently is a good thing too. I read a book once that talked about how to exist in any city as a single woman. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was great. It talked about go to different restaurants by yourself, read the menu, get familiar, so that, again, if someone comes to town, you'd be able to say, hey, I know a great restaurant.
Yeah.
Get comfortable with being in a restaurant by yourself. Look around, you'll meet people. You can even tell the waiter it's your birthday. And guess what? How about the whole wait staff might come over and bring you, a cake and what have you. Or someone may say, hey, let me pick up that tab for her.
Wow. That's a good. I'm going to try that one. It's your birthday.
It works. But it's got to be your birthday.
It's got to be your birthday. Okay. So I know that you've worked with Ford, yes, and with the Living Proof Tour.
Yes.
And so it's some really big names. And so when you're working with these companies, how do you diversify authentically?
Well, actually, diversity can be involved without you even knowing it. Something as simple as healthcare. Everybody needs healthcare.
True.
So you want to find a common thread that would compel people to look, listen, and then react. For instance, with Ford, buying cars is a big ticket item. So I thought we should learn how to purchase a car. So I did a survey with dealers. And at dealerships, the salesman would say, a lot of people want that big vehicle. But by the time you get to the back room and run the credit, it's not a good story.
Right.
Because they actually just didn't prepare. So we decided to create a tour called Invest in Yourself. That meant to learn how to invest in yourself, but we created a preparation kit. So that first you need to learn, what is your FICO score? How much do you really want to spend on a car? What is your insurance going to be per month? So those are basic questions, but you should know all of that before you go into the dealership. And even if you want to go into the dealer shop to kind of get an idea of what the numbers look like, you shouldn't say you're ready to buy. You should do your homework, see what the prices are, and then go home and do all of that background work. What's my FICO score? You might want to get your credit score up a little bit, or save some money to put down so you have a nice deposit to bring down your car payments. So there's things that we should be doing, even when it comes to a student loan. Parents should sit down and determine how much do they want to save to put their child through college, as well as teach that young person, this is where your credit begins. You can get credit cards, but you do not want to come out of school with debt, with credit cards and a loan. So you want to talk about just how to invest in yourself and do better with numbers.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sitting here thinking, like, as you're speaking, that I think there's a lot of us that didn't have the those resources. Like there was nobody sitting down telling us about doing that kind of stuff. And then you end up at the car dealership because you have a need.
Yes.
And then you don't know how the game goes. So they end up going in those back rooms and having these conversations. And then they put you into something with these high interest rates with, we can definitely do something with you. And really they're just giving you the inventory that they don't really, that they need to get rid of, that they need to move. And so you end up with a car that you probably can't afford and that at the end of the day you really didn't want, but because you need a car so bad. And so, I'm wondering how do we kind of get that message out? Where do they start with stuff like that? I mean, we have the internet, yes, but in some things I think people don't totally understand. And I'm not, there's just some people that I know that just don't understand when we're reading these types of things and they're saying, well, what is that? Like, what is a FICO score? Like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? And how does that affect me? And I just need a car. You know what I mean?
Well, with today's technology, you can find all that information right on the internet. But it's really good to talk to a person. You want to go to someone that you trust, as well as someone who is going to share with you honestly what you should and should not do. Again, if you don't know your credit score, that might be the first question. What is a credit score?
Right.
And then you go from there. Secondly, you have to look at your current needs as well as think about future. Everybody thinks that, the big new fancy cars or the big SUVs they should have right now. No, because you have to look at what does it take to maintain those things. After you make the car payment, the insurance, what kind of gas does it take? What kind of maintenance does it require? Then you might change your mind and say, yeah, I could work with that Honda right now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. My grandfather used to tell me that I should pay cash. You should pay cash for your cars. That's the advice that he would give me. He said he goes into the dealership and he takes his money, and I don't know how much it was at the time, but he always drove. There was a Buick, the Park Avenue.
Okay, I remember that.
And he'd go in there and he'd pay cash for that car. He says, when you go into a car dealership with cash, honey, you can get that car for whatever price you put on that you write down. That's basically what he would say.
I get that, but also too, here's the thing: a car depreciates 20% from its sticker price right after you drive it off the lot. Yeah. So why would you want to lose 20% of the cash that you just brought in? It would really be best to pay monthly and get your credit score and things like that together while you have that car and determine, do you really want to drop a wad of cash like that? Yeah. It's really, really good to have credit. It'll help you in other ways in your life. You've got to get a mortgage at some point. Yes. They're just a business loan. You want to do things that will build up a better foundation for you so you can move forward. You could take that cash also and put it in an interest earning account while you're making those monthly payments so you can do something else. You're making your money work twice. Right. So that's a smarter way. I mean, back in the day, yes, cash helped you get the attention from the salesperson. And they'll make a deal, of course, because they want to take your cash. Yes, right. But these days, credit is everything. You've got good credit, and even if you don't have credit, you can establish credit. Start small, learn how to use a credit card before you run up. I had a friend who once thought that it would be great that if he bought his fiance a $20,000 engagement ring. When she realized that, she says, we're taking this ring back. Because again, she realized, that's way too much money for you to be paying every month. One, we have other plans. Two, we want to buy a house. Right. So you want to take it slow when you have that amount of money. Yeah. New credit will get you in bad credit too.
Yes, it will, to get you in bad shape real quickly. And you're like, how did I get here? So other than and aside from your banking and your financial prowess, you also have produced some cultural shaping events.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So Essence Festivals. Source 360. So what makes an event timeless?
To give people what they're really looking for. You want audiences to walk away saying, wow, what a great event. And that happens with content, production, how they're treated, with customer service, access to their culture. The reason we chose New Orleans for the Essence Music Festival was because, one, the whole city wanted something to energize people to see New Orleans a little differently. Two, economically, the economics were wonderful because brands that were there, but then it attracted other brands. We had brands in our magazine that weren't really as prominent within the city. So when you can bring Coca-Cola and turn the whole town upside down,
Right.
but they had a great time because they were introduced to all kinds of products, water, the teas, many soft beverages that people wouldn't think Coca-Cola had, but you get a chance to create unique opportunities for people to experience those brands. And then people who had never been to New Orleans or didn't know about Cajun food and so forth got introduced to cuisines that they were like, wow, every year I go back. I make it my business to go to the French market and get all my seasonings and spices, and just was introduced to a culture in the South that I didn't know. I mean, I'm from Alabama, but I hadn't been to New Orleans, and it was a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And Coca-Cola had a lot of money to make that an experience. I know a lot of people now talk about the experience. Everything's about the experience.
Everything is about the experience. Many companies are there during the Essence Music Festival. Again, they're tapping into our culture, and it highlights the opportunity for them to deliver the things that we're looking for. Yeah. Also culturally, a lot of artists come in, and we have this whole market. It's just wonderful seeing African art, clothing made by Black designers, makeup and products. So it's like you're immersed in your culture in a way that you have never been exposed before.
True.
And every night you got to see a different artist. So that main stage had major headliners. Within the Superdome, there were 4 different areas where you could hear Zydeco, blues, jazz, hip hop, and neo soul. I mean, it's just like so great to really see us in our totality and go, wow, this is wonderful.
Yes, I'm sure. And how did that, how for you as a person who was a part of that and making that happen, that had to be a very a pat on the back.
It was wonderful. And we brought some basic things. Like the first year we had Frankie Beverly perform, and at the end of the night, everybody got up and did the electric slide. You know what that meant, though? That was the common thread. Yeah. Because it was something that everybody could do.
Yeah.
And you know that you've done it at family reunions, picnics, and so forth. So when we had that one little thing, it became a staple that every year before we let go, we had to do the electric slide.
Okay. So what was one of the biggest behind the scenes challenges that you faced with organizing and putting together an event like that?
You're working with a lot of people, and you're dealing with a lot of small details and big details. In each event, there's always something, but it's a learning experience. I learned time management. I learned even how to travel lighter, because I like taking too many things and then I can't take them home because I don't have a place to put them. Right. But I've learned that, working with people, you have to learn to be tolerant, but you can also look at from their point of view. They're out of their safe space. When you're dealing with celebrities, they're dealing with juggling with multiple schedules, their personal lives, and so forth. Right. So you kind of have to be aware that you want to service them and make them feel like they're part of the family. We got you. We got you. Whatever you need, we got you. Yeah. So it's always good to just work with the team in a way like everybody's a family.
And speaking of artists, you have some experience in managing artists.
Oh, yes.
Your background is so, how do you jump into these things? And I'm not trying to imply that you're just jumping around, but I'm just saying it's so people don't take these chances.
That's it. You got to take a chance. And it's also a journey. Certain things are a preparation for the next thing. So having banking as my background was a very good thing because I learned how to move money around the world positively. I also learned a good business ethic. And in many things, people do not have a good business foundation. After I'd left Essence, I was doing a lot of freelance work and ran into someone, and I wound up being one of the godfather groups of hip hop, the Cold Crush Brothers. They started out, people don't know their career, but, they started out in the Bronx, during the days of Kool Herc and so forth, and they needed management. And no one really understood the value of their portfolio and what they could do. We actually were able to produce the soundtrack to the movie Fresh.
Yes.
You know, we did another album with CNC Music Factory. I mean, musicians are talented, and everybody can figure out how we can work together. We even did an album with Chuck D and Terminator. So, they wanted to also embrace the forefathers that they called them, because guess what? If it hadn't been for those that started it, where would they be?
True. So there's lessons that can be learned from the pioneers.
Yes.
In the arts. And I think that today is just so, of course, everybody's like, oh, back in our day, you know what I mean? But as a talent agent, working in that role, what was one of the biggest things that you think you learned from that?
The art of making a deal. Because everybody would like to see their favorite artist, but there are the people who present the artist, those are the promoters, but also the artists need to be able to go out and promote their products and show their talent. See, there's a difference from being in the studio and then performing live. Some studio artists can't cut it on the stage. But if you are a live performer and you can record an album that sells, you want to be able to market that album. So you want your agents to book you, and you'll work around the country and outside of the country and have people learn that you are an artist at very different levels.
Right. Yeah, and artists sometimes, I think they probably feel like, you have to give them that space for their creativity to not kind of change, the message that they're trying to get across with their art. So that's got to take a delicate balance too.
It does, but in different roles. So as a manager, you want to support your artist and give them feedback on what you think works for them. But they, as an artist, also have a way of presenting what's inside of them. And again, if it's authentic and it's unique, and you work with the right team, your label, distribution. See, back in the day, there was a big machinery. People who helped cultivated your performance, your look. I worked with Mary J. Blige back in the early days, and that was one of the things we talked about a lot on, PR, how to handle the media, and also showing up right. You never know when someone's going to call you and say, hey, can you do this interview? Or, hey, we got an opportunity for you to open for, or we need you to headline and we got another opening yet. You want to be able to step in all of those opportunities and then also create unique things that give back. Mary does a lot of things with women and, abuse and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's also, how do you tell a story? Those albums where I think her heart hurt the most were probably the best sellers.
Yes. I agree with that. And I think, I remember Mary J. coming here. She was at, I can't remember the name of the venue now, but I think it's where the Dinosaur Barbecue is at now.
Okay.
Was there?
I don't remember what that was.
She came.
Diem.
Carpe Diem. Yes.
Right.
Oh my gosh. No, it wasn't. We had a good time, and there wasn't a lot of people there. And I want to say that she was brand new. It was the 411.
Okay.
And we were in there. We were dancing. We were singing along, and it was just like, it was very intimate. I mean, there may have been 100 people there, but we had a really good time, and we was singing along with her, and that was now you can't, I was like, hey, Mary, I remember, bring me up front. She said, you get your tickets up front, right? But it was a great thing, and I always remember that. And as I saw her grow as an artist and make these strides, I was very proud of her, and I was like, I remember when she first started. Before all the costume, not the costumes, but before all the elaborate stuff, she was just a homegirl, and she was singing her heart out, and they had the dancers, and it was really good. We had a good time. So that was something that I remember, creating these memories. You know what I mean? So, any advice for young women in male-dominated fields?
Hold your own. Do your homework. Be prepared, and be authentic. And that means putting you in the midst of things with your passion, as well as what you believe you have to give and bring to the table. Women today is the fastest growing segment of employment and now entrepreneurship. And it's important that we learn how to do business. It's not always a sex thing, but it's a matter of you need to be able to bring something that's real, be able to hold your own, and then continue. Consistency is very important. A lot of people dream, I just want to make, a lot of money. No, you've got to have a plan. And you got to work that plan. And here's the other piece. You really need to bring in others. Open that door, work as a team, because you have to be able to grow. If you start off, bootstrapping it by yourself, you have to figure out, well, how can I make more? Well, you're going to have more help. You're going to have more finances. You want to be able to grow as best as you can. And maybe you'll inspire someone else to do the same thing.
Yeah, true. That's the truth, because you can't do everything, at least efficiently.
Efficiently.
Yeah, on your own. What do you know of any misconceptions about women leaders, women in leadership?
Yes. A lot of people tend to think women are either overly emotional, or we think with our heart versus our brains, or, we're going to cave in because of personal issues. And that's not necessarily true. I've worked with many women who can struggle and, toil just as good as anyone else. But at the same token, there's a commitment. If you're a single mom, you're trying to make those ends meet and give a good example so that your children can say, Mom did it, and that was a good way to see someone deliver and be responsible. But I think we're holding our own. We're holding our own.
Yeah. How do you deal with some of the ignorance that can come from sometimes men when they're dealing with women in business? I remember I was working with, and this was in a physician's office, and I was working with the doctor, and he introduced me to one of the gentlemen, and he was telling him that I was new there and I was going to be working there. And he had the nerve to ask him, did he take me in the kitchen and show me how to make the sausage?
Oh, boy.
I said, and I'm like, I wanted to, immediately, I wanted to lash out at him because I took that in so many different ways. You know what I'm saying? First of all, I was, because I'm a black woman or, because I'm a woman, like, where did that come from? But I didn't, and the doctor kind of like, he went around it and he talked, he kind of moved it into another direction, but it was just so alarming to me. And I really had to take a deep breath. And is that something?
I've experienced that. What you have to do is first hold your own, keep your composure, and then show him what you can do. Because no one wants a soft or an incompetent assistant or someone who they're afraid might not be able to cut the grade or make the grade.
Yeah.
You want to show them, you know what? You'll change your mind in a minute. And I have had that situation, and let me tell you, at the end of the day, they were very happy I was on the team.
I bet they were.
You just have to show them.
Yeah. Yeah. I even had a situation where I went to was being introduced, and you go to shake a person's hand like everybody else. He said, I don't shake no woman's hand.
Well, in some cultures, men don't shake hands. I've had that happen, but I did not take it personally.
Yeah.
I was informed that because of their religion, they weren't allowed to shake hands with women. And if that's not the case...
Which I don't think that was the case. Because I think this was just a Negro being a Negro.
Well, accept it, but still be courteous and be professional and move forward. Because I think when some people aren't comfortable with working with women, that's their insecurity.
Okay.
More so than saying, okay, that's a good team member. I've got her.
Yeah.
But, they have to learn. And sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah.
They need to kind of work with us a little more and see that we're capable.
Yeah, yeah. I said, well, I respect your, I respect that. I was just trying to be, courteous like everybody else was. I had no idea that that's the way he felt, You
do that, move on, but be as professional as you can.
Yeah, I just smiled.
Your response is what people are going to look at.
Yeah, right. And that's what they'll remember.
Yes.
And I've learned that all the way through life. In any situation I've been in, where sometimes situations weren't exactly fair.
That's true.
And then they'll say, oh, and then when you respond, then it's almost like you're this angry, what it is, the angry black woman, right? So I've learned now to kind of smile and kind of nod and just go with it. And then sometimes if there is a need for a further conversation, I just take it on another, we just do it at another time or in a better setting, not in front of everyone. So I don't know about. And so as far as mentorships, do you do any mentoring?
I have mentored and been mentored. And the best thing you can do, especially entering a field that you're not experiencing yet, is look for a mentor.
Yes.
And then you can give back by mentoring. I've worked in environments where young women came up to me and said, okay, can you please help me out? And I did, because, there weren't a lot of women when I decided I wanted to do producing to mentor me. I didn't know any women. I found one woman, and she happened to be an engineer, and she worked with Miles Davis. And I said, okay, we're going to talk. She says, I have to tell you something. I'm just going to throw you into it, and you got to learn. I said, okay, but I will talk to you. She said, well, that's the good way that we can communicate, because if you ask me a question, I'll try my best to answer it. But I also looked at that she also took a lot of opportunities. I mean, she got to work with people all around the world because she decided to do something that was uncharted for most black women. Mm-hmm. And there was nobody there to give her the answers, but she was a great example.
Okay. And so she had to kind of figure,
she
made her own way.
She
That's
made her
right.
own.
Yeah, that could be so scary. So it is good to have that.
It is. But we also have to reach out and talk to other people in the industry. It may not be a woman, but it may be a man.
Yeah.
But also we have to find the experts and just ask them what was their journey like, just so we have a little bit of an idea, but not be afraid to have our own journey, because each journey is different.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I think that's important. Mm-hmm. And we just intertwine kind of our experiences and things of that nature. So when you work with, as far as when you were being mentored, did you reach out to somebody, or did you have somebody in mind? Who would be your ideal?
I had unique mentors.
Okay.
I would say my first mentor was Susan Taylor. Because we got together after I was interviewed to work at Essence and talked about the challenges that women have. Mm-hmm. She learned something and I learned something. Again, I was a single woman in New York City. She was a single mother with her own challenges. Mm-hmm. Then we talked to other women to find out what were their challenges. And we found that if we share enough information, we'll get a really good picture on how to navigate the waters. I also had a mentor. She was a designer, and an industrial designer. She actually designed the first plastic hanger in America and the push-button phone.
What?
Yes. But here's the thing. She was dyslexic. So she had to figure out how to overcome her challenge of being dyslexic. Mm-hmm. But she could draw. Oh, she was a talented artist. So her mother allowed her to draw her homework and do things and then talk to her teacher. They had to figure out a way of training her. But lo and behold, she graduated high school, went on to college, and became an industrial designer and started a marketing firm.
Wow.
So you can overcome some of the major learning disabilities as long as you stick close to what you're passionate about.
Yes. And when I meet people like that, it's almost like I don't look at it so much as a disability. Mm-hmm. I look at it that we just don't understand how their minds work, and they're actually the brilliance in the room, right?
That's what it is. As well as, I've met so many women that didn't have formal education.
Yes.
They just had a heart. I have a friend who raised over 20 or 30 foster children because she wanted families to have support. And she became a social worker. And it's just a wonderful thing to have somebody in your corner that understands what you go through. Mm-hmm. But how do you solve the problems? She was able to get resources and, help the families and, help keep them together and make sure the children got returned to their home environment if it was possible.
Mm. Yeah, and then a lot of times you're not going to be able to save everyone, but if it's just that one life, and if we're all touching at least one life, right? Then
exactly.
we should be able to cover everyone.
That's right.
And that's a hard part, because I was raised by a single mother. I think a lot of us have like these single parent and come from these environments that are not traditional parenting. But even some people, there's some people that were raised in families that are traditional, that was hell on wheels.
That's
you know
true.
what I mean?
That's
and they
true.
had to overcome a lot of obstacles too.
That's true.
But I think that sometimes, for me, it was just trying to balance like where I kind of fit in, because I would always, it's and not that you don't have a childhood, but you just have to take on so many other responsibilities at such an early age.
You do.
And then you just kind of like don't really know.
But you can use that to your advantage, such as, if you've got to be mom, then you learn how to manage the house, how to manage the children, and you're probably more responsible than most young women, keeping the house clean and what have you, helping mom out so that when she comes in, if she doesn't have to cook dinner or start all over, you can use those skills and take them into your own life. Secondly, you also want to create a network. Like I said, look for people or admire someone that you think has the qualities that would help you get to where you're trying to go. If you create a network of resources, I must have girlfriends all over the world. Why? Because we meet people, Keep that name, keep that number, stay in touch. If that person is an expert in something, or you find that they've got that skill, you ask that person, and keep it going. Give and return by saying, is there something I can do for you?
Right. And you'll probably be surprised at how many people will actually help you. Yeah, that's true. I've had that experience as well. So top-notch strategies, your philosophy. How has it evolved over time?
Because I always wanted to be able to catch the vision of whomever I'm working with.
Yes.
And then once I get the vision, I want to exceed what I think is possible, because it's really good to reach for the stars.
Yeah.
And if you land on the moon, it's not really bad. Exactly. It's a plus.
That's true. That's true. I never thought of it like that. Yeah. What is your proudest career legacy?
Wow, I've done a couple of things that I'm really happy about.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure you have.
I really just think almost everything is part of the legacy, from doing, if I hadn't done fashion shows at East High School, I might not have been interested in working at Essence Magazine.
True.
If I hadn't taken dance with Garth Fagan, I might not have been able to work at Lincoln Center and produce events. I just love working with things that are in their infancy and then seeing the growth that they've become. I mean, who would have thought that, what is it now, almost 30 years later, Essence Music Festival is one of the biggest festivals.
Yeah, everybody's doing it, right?
In the U.S.
That's true. So, and I think that we just have to get out, like you said, get out of our comfort zone.
Exactly.
And try some new things. But sometimes that's easier said than done.
It is. But you know what? There is a acronym that I heard from someone.
Okay.
It's called POUR. You're poor because you pass opportunities over repeatedly.
Wow.
So if you really want to get rich, you enrich yourself, you enrich your life by trying something. An opportunity can knock once or several times, but if you keep passing it over,
right, then that's just one on you, right?
That's one on you.
What is one timeless principle that you would share with future entrepreneurs?
Lead by example, because the people that I admired the most presented themselves in a way that was a very good example. You have to decide that that's the role model that you like. But when you learn what their qualities are and what it takes to succeed, then someone may be watching you and say, wow, okay, that's a good example for me, or it's not.
True. Yeah, I can see that. And how do you feel about failure?
Failure is called a lesson. You have to fail sometimes. Nobody's ever going to succeed at everything.
Right.
But if you don't learn the reasons why you failed in that situation, or it wasn't the right time for you, everything has a lesson in it.
That's true. That's true. And I think some people are afraid to do things or take those chances because they're worried about what people are going to say or how they're going to look or, they're embarrassed. But you know what?
Yeah.
It's worth it, I think.
It is. And we can't live our lives by other people's thoughts.
That's true.
You want to be happy.
Yes,
right. There are things that I wished I would have done, or I just missed some opportunity. You have to say there was a reason it didn't work out.
Right.
Let me sit back. Let me take a look at that. But then especially if it was timing, I learned to buy a house by losing 3 or 4. And I said, okay, now I'm going to go and do some research and really figure out. And when I found the one, it was the house of my dreams. And that's what you need to do.
Yeah, and if you hadn't had the experience.
If I hadn't had the experience, and even listen to your gut. Sometimes you can feel things, like you feel like you're rushing it, or it doesn't feel quite right. Sometimes you're feeling desperate. Oh, I got to have something right now. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. That's when you stop, take a beat, take a deep breath, and say, there's something better coming around the corner.
Yeah, I think that's true as well, because I know I've had experiences like that. And I think a lot of times, though, you start acting out of, desperation almost. And then you end up making these, and you say, why did I do this? So if you're in the heat of that moment, you just have to kind of what do you do? Do you count to 10? Do you have a way that you redirect your thoughts?
I never believed that this is the last opportunity or you passing up on the big deal. You can, when an opportunity presents itself, that it'll work out. But when you do something and still don't see it as a failure, if it didn't work out, I'm telling you, there's a very valuable lesson in it so that you'll be stronger and better the next time an opportunity comes.
Okay. And for my last question, what would be something that you would recommend that somebody that they should try before they leave this realm of existence?
Oh, wow. I think that's an individual question. It should be something that, again, to either takes them out of their comfort zone or something that can enrich their lives and say, I'm glad I did something that I didn't like.
Okay. So no bungee jumping or parasailing or anything like that?
I mean, you can if you're into that.
Okay.
You can if you're into that.
I got you.
But it's individual, Everybody has something, face a fear.
Okay.
Face a fear and see what happens.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure interviewing you and a pleasure meeting you.
Oh, thank you, Beth. And I look forward, and we're going to stay in touch.
Okay. And hopefully maybe you'll come back on a part 2.
I'd be happy to.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for joining us for today's podcast. Deuces.
Trap new